Scientists have learned why people suffer the effects of old age, and it all comes down to DNA. In The Telomere Effect, 2017, biochemist Elizabeth Blackburn and psychologist Elissa Epel explain that your telomeres, the tiny protective caps on your genetic material, dictate how fast you age. The authors say that longer telomeres keep your cells youthful for longer, and by extension grant you a longer and healthier life. This book offers insights into how everyday habits like sleep, diet, and exercise can help slow down aging by keeping these crucial little caps from wearing out too quickly. When it comes to decoding the mysteries of aging, few can claim authority like Blackburn's. A Nobel laureate in physiology or medicine, she's one of the pioneering scientists who isolated telomeres and discovered telomerase, an enzyme that replenishes these vital structures. Her groundbreaking work earned her a spot among Time's 100 most influential people in 2007. Today, she serves as a professor emerita at the University of California, San Francisco. Epel is a health psychologist who has spent over 2 decades studying how daily stress and lifestyle choices affect the body's most fundamental units, its cells. She's a professor at the University of California, San Francisco, and has co-authored several books about how simple habits can benefit people's health in profound ways. In this guide, we'll begin by explaining what telomeres are and their crucial role in aging. We'll then discuss how and why telomeres fray under persistent stress. Finally, we'll explore some strategies to protect and rebuild your telomeres, helping you stay youthful and healthy for as long as possible. Our commentary will provide additional background information on telomeres and how your lifestyle can affect them. We'll also provide some scientific evidence that supports or contradicts the author's assertions. New section. What are telomeres? Blackburn and Epel begin by explaining that telomeres are repetitive DNA sequences coated in protein. They act as protective caps on the ends of your chromosomes, the parts of your cells that contain genetic information made of many different genes coiled up like tightly wound threads. In this section, we'll discuss the role of telomeres in our bodies and how they play into the aging process. Telomeres protect DNA during cell division. To help understand why telomeres are so important, the authors explain that telomeres protect your genetic information, your DNA, during cell division. Your cells reproduce themselves by dividing, a process called mitosis. During mitosis, a cell copies its chromosomes and then splits into 2 new cells, with each cell getting 1 set of chromosomes. However, the cell loses small pieces of DNA from the ends of its chromosomes during this copying process, which is why the telomeres are necessary. You only lose bits of those repetitive, meaningless DNA sequences instead of having your actual genes get damaged. Short-form note. Throughout this book, the authors assert that longer telomeres are better than shorter ones, that the longer your telomeres are, the longer you stay healthy. However, that may not be the entire story. One scientific study found that people with longer telomeres are not significantly healthier than those with shorter telomeres. In fact, the greatest difference was only in what types of diseases those groups tended to develop. People with shorter telomeres were more prone to heart disease and Alzheimer's, while people with longer telomeres were more likely to develop cancer. Furthermore, the authors explain, mitosis is a crucial biological process. This is because your cells naturally die over time, and they can also become damaged due to injury, illness, or environmental toxins like car exhaust. In fact, this is happening constantly. The reason you stay healthy in spite of all this harm is because your cells continually divide in order to replace the dead and damaged ones. Short-form note, mitosis, cell division, isn't just important for humans. It's a necessary function for nearly every species on Earth except bacteria. Mitosis serves 3 purposes. First, it allows organisms to grow and develop by creating new cells for their bodies. Second, it makes healing possible, as we've discussed already. Finally, some species rely on mitosis for asexual reproduction, essentially creating clones of themselves through fragmentation, budding, or other means. You age because your telomeres get shorter. Mitosis is necessary to keep you healthy, and telomeres allow your cells to undergo mitosis safely. However, Blackburn and Epel emphasize that your telomeres aren't endless. Each time one of your cells divides, the telomeres inside that cell get a little bit shorter. When a cell's telomeres get too short, that cell enters senescence, which means that it's too old to keep reproducing. Senescent cells are responsible for many of the harmful effects of aging. For instance, these worn-out cells constantly send out chemical signals that cause inflammation, leading to ailments like arthritis. As more and more senescent cells build up in your body, you start to experience the pains and frailty of old age. Alternate theories of aging. Aside from the theory of shortening telomeres that Blackburn and Epel espouse, there are several other theories about why people age. One popular theory, called the DNA damage theory of aging, suggests that aging occurs due to the accumulation of progressive damage in our DNA over time. This genetic damage could result from random mutations, radiation, like from sunlight, environmental pollution, and countless other potential causes. As this DNA damage keeps building up, it eventually reaches a point where our cells can no longer function correctly, leading to the breakdown and aging of our bodies. Another theory gaining popularity comes from biologist David Sinclair, Lifespan, who's developed what he calls the information theory of aging. His theory states that we age due to an accumulation of epigenetic damage over time. The epigenome consists of proteins that wrap around the DNA and control which genes are expressed or turned on in each cell. Therefore, the epigenome controls how our bodies use the genetic information encoded in the DNA. According to Sinclair's theory, it's the changes and damage to this epigenetic layer of control that drives the aging process, not mutations in the underlying DNA code itself. New section. Chronic stress damages your telomeres. Blackburn and Epel say that aside from physical factors like injuries and pollutants, mental health disorders, stress, and negative thought patterns also cause your telomeres to shorten more quickly. In short, chronic stress makes you age faster. This happens as a side effect of the fight-or-flight response. When you're feeling stressed or upset, your body prepares you for action. Your heart beats faster, your blood pressure rises, and you release the stress hormones cortisol and epinephrine. All of this gives you a burst of energy and strength so that you can overcome danger or escape from it. However, it also puts a great deal of strain on your body, meaning your cells have to divide more quickly in order to fix the damage. In this section, we'll explore some of the ways that your habitual thought patterns may be causing you and your telomeres unnecessary stress. Then we'll discuss the unexpectedly large impact that social isolation can have on your well-being. Finally, as a partial counterpoint, we'll briefly discuss the author's explanation of how short-term stress can actually improve your health rather than damaging it. Further effects of chronic stress. Blackburn and Epel's ideas are novel in that they tie the effects of stress to telomere length. However, it was already well known that long-term stress can have a myriad of negative effects on both mental and physical well-being. Here are just a few of those potential effects. 1. Cardiovascular problems. Chronic stress can lead to high blood pressure, increased risk of heart disease, and an elevated risk of stroke. 2. Digestive issues. Stress can cause or exacerbate problems such as irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, ulcers, and acid reflux. 3. Sleep disturbances. Stress can disrupt sleep patterns, leading to insomnia or poor sleep quality, which can further exacerbate health issues. 4. Mental health problems. Chronic stress can contribute to or worsen conditions such as anxiety disorders, depression, and mood disorders. 5. Cognitive impairment. Persistent stress can affect memory, concentration, and decision-making abilities. 6. Headaches and muscle tension. Chronic stress can cause frequent headaches, migraines, and muscle tension or pain. Negative thinking creates stress. Blackburn and Epel say that a great deal of preventable stress comes from getting yourself stuck in negative thought patterns. So, if you find yourself slipping into any of the following mental habits or perspectives, you might unintentionally be damaging your telomeres. The author's solution to these negative thought patterns is resilient thinking, which we'll discuss later. Negative thought pattern number 1. Pessimism. Blackburn and Epel say that pessimism, always expecting the worst possible thing to happen, is an unfortunately common and harmful way to think. For instance, perhaps you always anticipate failure or disaster as a form of self-protection. You might believe that it's better to expect the worst than to be caught off guard. However, this way of thinking leads to chronic stress, and therefore it's most likely damaging your telomeres more than it's protecting you. A closely related thought pattern is cynicism. Cynicism is like pessimism, but it specifically means that you always expect the worst from other people. Cynical people are distrustful, quick to anger, and prone to overreactions. If you tend to be hostile toward others or assume that everyone else is untrustworthy, you're probably stuck in cynical thought patterns and putting yourself through a lot of unnecessary stress as a result. Short-form note: it should be noted that pessimism and cynicism aren't bad things in and of themselves. They can help you anticipate and prepare for negative outcomes, such as by building up your savings in case you lose your job or keeping you on guard against scammers. These thought patterns only become problematic when they start to interfere with your well-being, such as by causing you excessive anxiety when there's really no danger. They can also be harmful if your fears and worries drive you to self-defeating behaviors, such as perfectionism and workaholism. In trying to avoid mistakes at all costs and make sure you have enough money, you'll do yourself more harm than good. Negative thought pattern number 2, rumination. Another harmful thought pattern the authors discuss is rumination, circular thinking where you go over the same stressful thoughts again and again without reaching any solution. This thought pattern is common when, for instance, you find that you can't stop thinking about some mistake you made or an embarrassing situation you found yourself in. Unfortunately, trying to suppress those thoughts, burying them with constant distractions, or pushing them away through sheer force of will is equally stressful and thus equally damaging to your telomeres. How to stop ruminating. Blackburn and Epel say that rumination is harmful for your telomeres, but by its very nature you can't just decide to stop ruminating. In Emotional Intelligence, psychologist Daniel Goleman offers some suggestions on how to break out of your cycling thoughts. One effective way to combat rumination is to intentionally schedule pleasant distractions throughout your day. Sad, ruminative thoughts often arise automatically, so actively engaging in enjoyable activities can help break the cycle of these intrusive thoughts. It's crucial that the distractions you choose are genuinely pleasant for you. Research shows depressed individuals tend to select more depressing distractions when given the choice. By filling your schedule with activities you enjoy, you create productive breaks from rumination. Another method is to engineer small, easy successes or triumphs for yourself. Accomplishing minor tasks like completing chores, getting dressed up, or volunteering to help others can provide a mood boost and give you a positive focus. Instead of dwelling on ruminative thoughts, you shift your attention to the sense of achievement from these manageable successes. Even small triumphs can raise your spirits and concentration in a way that combats persistent rumination. Negative thought pattern number 3, worrying. Finally, Blackburn and Epel say that some people suffer more from the fear of stress than from actual stressful events. In other words, they worry too much. Therefore, the authors urge you to consider the way you think about stress. If you tend to get anxious at the mere thought of difficulty or discomfort before anything stressful happens, odds are good that you're worrying away your telomeres. Short-form note: worry, like the authors describe here, often results from the fear of uncertainty. You don't know exactly what's going to happen, so you stress yourself out over every possibility. This fear of uncertainty is exactly what therapist Lori Gottlieb describes struggling with in her memoir, Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. She finally overcomes her fear and the midlife crisis it's caused by learning to live in the moment instead of worrying about possible futures that might never happen. In short, Gottlieb comes to accept that her time is limited and she'll never know when the end of her life might come. Instead of being afraid of this idea, she embraces it as a reason to fully savor every moment she has left. Social isolation creates stress. Scientists have known for many years that social isolation causes people a great deal of stress. For instance, that's why solitary confinement is a common punishment for prisoners. However, Blackburn and Epel say that the damaging effects of loneliness and rejection reach far beyond emotional distress, with scientific research spotlighting how these social ailments can meddle with the health of our telomeres. This occurs because everyone has an inherent need for love and connection with others. In fact, loneliness and rejection trigger the fight-or-flight response, just as if you were in physical danger. As we've said before, this shortens your telomeres unusually quickly. Short-form note: in Daring Greatly, social worker Brené Brown says that people have 3 essential needs that must be met for them to live full, happy and satisfying lives, what she calls wholehearted living. Love and connection with other people are 2 of those core needs, which helps explain why your brain responds to rejection, lack of love, and loneliness, lack of connection, as though you were in physical danger. The third of these needs is belonging, feeling as though you fit in, that you're in the right place and with the right people. Therefore, it follows that a lack of belonging, feeling uncomfortable or unsafe in your environment, would have a similar effect on your well-being and your telomeres. The authors add that this effect is especially noticeable among 2 vulnerable groups: children and minorities. Children who are isolated from their peers undergo chronic stress during a crucial developmental period. In fact, studies have shown that children who experience this and other traumas, such as from abusive parents, have significantly shorter telomeres than children raised in healthy, nurturing environments. Furthermore, these shorter telomeres can lead to early-onset cardiovascular problems. In other words, these children could develop heart conditions that you'd normally expect in people who are middle-aged or older. Researchers have observed a similar phenomenon in minorities, such as people of color, who often face discrimination from their peers and from society. The authors say that experiencing discrimination carries significant harm beyond hurting a person's emotional well-being and sense of worth. It also generates chronic stress, which can lead to the negative health effects we've been discussing throughout this section. Chronic stress and CPTSD. Although the link between chronic stress and telomere length is a relatively new discovery, researchers have known about the health effects of abuse and bigotry for much longer. For example, in complex PTSD, therapist consultant Pete Walker explains that trauma like the authors are describing can lead to complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD. CPTSD is a psychological condition that comes from prolonged, repeated abuse or neglect, usually in childhood. Walker adds that many people associate this condition only with physical or sexual abuse, but people can also develop CPTSD from long-term verbal and emotional abuse, or even neglect. Essentially, CPTSD is what happens when someone gets locked into a trauma response, which is to say, the fight-or-flight response we discussed earlier. Because of their traumatic history, the person comes to view everything as a threat, and their body and brain respond accordingly. Walker says that when dealing with complex trauma, recovery is complex as well. To be effective, a CPTSD treatment plan must address the various physical, psychological, emotional, and social harms that long-term abuse or neglect causes. Counterpoint: short-term stress builds resilience. Blackburn and Epel say that while chronic stress causes you to age more quickly, short-term stress can actually make you more resilient and help protect your telomeres. This is because when you face manageable amounts of stress, your body responds by releasing hormones that help you adapt and cope effectively. This adaptive response, in turn, can strengthen your immune system and improve your overall health, helping to safeguard the length and integrity of your telomeres. Short-form note: whether stress is helpful or harmful may not depend on its duration, but rather on the type of stress experienced. The distinction between eustress, positive stress, and distress lies in the sense of danger. Eustress occurs when you feel challenged but not threatened. In her book, The Upside of Stress, psychologist Kelly McGonigal explains that positive stress triggers the challenge response, which prepares the body for action by increasing heart rate, respiration, focus, and energy levels. However, it does not create the harmful long-term effects that are linked to chronic distress. New section. The good news: telomerase rebuilds telomeres. Blackburn and Epel say that most cells can divide about 50 times before entering senescence. This is called the Hayflick limit, named for Leonard Hayflick, the biologist who discovered it. However, an enzyme called telomerase can rebuild telomeres, allowing cells to bypass the Hayflick limit. Unfortunately, much like your cells, your telomerase doesn't keep working forever. Telomerase becomes less active as you get older, and eventually it can't keep up with your cells anymore. This inevitably leads to senescence and the health issues that come with it. The authors add that at this point, it might seem reasonable to artificially boost people's telomerase levels to prevent or cure aging. However, they warn that this method could lead to totally unchecked cell division, in other words, cancer. Therefore, the best way to maximize your years of health is to boost your telomerase as much as you can using natural methods. This will help you avoid the telomerase overdose that triggers cancer. Blackburn and Epel say that you can boost your telomerase levels and maintain your telomere health by living a wellness-focused lifestyle. In this section, we'll examine a number of the author's suggestions for protecting your telomeres and, in turn, your health. These strategies include getting regular exercise, eating a healthy diet, developing good sleep habits, living in a clean environment, developing a more optimistic mindset. Another anti-aging theory, Yamanaka factors. Boosting telomerase is one theory about how to extend a person's life and health, but there are others. For instance, according to biologist David Sinclair, lifespan, the true cure for aging may lie in a set of 4 genes called Yamanaka factors. Discovered by researcher Shinya Yamanaka, Yamanaka factors have the potential to reverse cell aging by reverting adult cells to immature stem cells. Those stem cells can then remature into young, healthy cells of any type. Sinclair believes that these Yamanaka factors, combined with other treatments, could one day be used to revert senescent cells into healthy ones, essentially resetting people's biological clocks. Unfortunately, like telomerase, Yamanaka factors can contribute to cancer. In fact, some research suggests that these genes are, at least in part, why cancer cells are so hard to kill and why cancer so frequently comes back after going into remission. Telomerase booster number 1, regular exercise. Blackburn and Epel say that regular exercise lowers your blood pressure and minimizes your risk of stroke, diabetes, and other aging-related diseases like dementia. They add that you don't need an intense workout regimen to see these benefits. A moderate exercise plan, such as going for a 45-minute walk or jog 3 times a week, goes a long way toward preserving your telomeres. However, the authors recommend aerobic endurance exercises or high-intensity interval training, HIIT, for maximum effect. How much exercise do you really need? While walking or jogging a few times a week is certainly beneficial, the authors may be understating how much additional benefit you can get from exercising more than that. Some studies have found that working out 2 to 4 times more than the minimum recommendations reduces the risk of death at any particular age by about 1/3. In simpler terms, the more you exercise, the longer you'll live. The anti-aging effects of aerobic exercise continue to work no matter how old you are. That said, seniors may find it difficult to exercise regularly without injuring themselves, thereby doing more harm than good. To help avoid that problem, there are many exercise programs geared toward older adults, such as aquatic yoga classes. It's also worth noting that vigorous exercise, such as high-intensity interval training, produces similar effects to moderate exercise, like walking or lifting weights, in just half the time. For example, in 2018, the American Medical Association recommended that adults do 150 to 300 minutes of moderate activity each week, or 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous activity. Telomerase booster number 2, healthy eating. When it comes to telomeres and cellular longevity, it's your metabolic health that matters, not your weight. Blackburn and Epel say that common symptoms of poor metabolic health, like excess belly fat, abnormal cholesterol levels, high blood pressure, and insulin resistance, often go hand in hand with telomere damage. Therefore, the authors suggest that rather than fixating on losing weight through stressful methods like harsh diets, you should take a more holistic and sustainable approach to your metabolic health. Protecting your metabolism, and therefore your telomeres, means adopting a prudent eating regimen that bolsters your overall well-being instead of a short-term diet that just burns fat. A telomere-friendly diet relies heavily on fresh fruits and vegetables for nutrients, while incorporating whole grains for sustained energy. To round out this diet, the authors recommend using nuts and fish as healthy sources of protein. Short-form note: a diet rich in vegetables and whole grains offers benefits beyond just metabolic health. It's also advantageous for oral health. In Jaws, orthodontist Sandra Kahn and biologist Paul R. Ehrlich explain that ancient humans actually had healthier mouths than modern humans do. The authors say this is because ancient humans used their teeth for rigorous tasks like tearing raw meat and grinding up uncooked vegetables. This intensive usage led to the development of larger jaws and stronger teeth, which naturally protected them from many of the dental issues we face today, such as malocclusion and tooth decay. Conversely, our modern diets of soft, processed foods leave us with underdeveloped jaws and weak teeth. Finally, the authors say that it's crucial to reduce your sugar intake. Refined sugars not only cause you to gain weight, they also contribute to metabolic conditions such as diabetes. For instance, most fruit juices and sodas deliver shocking amounts of sugar per glass. If you commonly drink these unhealthy beverages, try replacing them with flavored seltzer. Short-form note: are artificial sweeteners like aspartame and sucralose better than refined sugar? This has long been a source of controversy, with debates over artificial sweeteners' potential health impacts. However, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and food safety agencies in numerous countries have evaluated the available scientific evidence and concluded that these food additives are safe for most people when consumed in limited quantities. Therefore, artificial sweeteners can serve as healthier alternatives to refined sugar for those seeking to reduce their intake of added sugars and calories. Telomerase booster number 3, good sleep habits. Blackburn and Epel highlight the fact that a good night's sleep is not a luxury, but rather a vital component in maintaining the health of your telomeres. Research suggests that individuals grappling with chronic sleep issues tend to have shorter telomeres compared to those who regularly get sufficient rest. Short-form note: the authors imply that not getting enough sleep causes your telomeres to become shorter. However, we've already discussed the various ways that stress shortens telomeres. It's also known that people who suffer from chronic stress tend to suffer from insomnia as well. Therefore, it could be that lack of sleep and shortened telomeres are both symptoms of chronic stress rather than lack of sleep directly damaging the telomeres. The authors recommend getting at least 7 hours of sleep each night. However, they add that good sleep habits aren't just about how long you sleep. How well you sleep matters too. For instance, if you're constantly drifting in and out of sleep because noises outside keep waking you up, you and your telomeres won't get the full benefit of a good night's rest. Short-form note: there are countless pieces of advice about how to fall asleep and stay asleep more effectively. A few common suggestions include keeping your bedroom quiet, dark, at a comfortable temperature, and free from electronic devices that keep you awake, like TVs, computers, and smartphones. Experts also advise you to avoid caffeine and alcohol use close to bedtime. They also advise against consuming large meals late at night, as this can cause digestive discomfort that interferes with your sleep. Tip: establish a bedtime ritual. To help you consistently fall asleep and stay asleep, say the authors, you should go to bed and wake up at around the same times each day. Also, bedtime rituals like reading a book, listening to calming music, or practicing some light yoga before turning in will help you relax, and therefore improve your chances of getting better sleep. Short-form note: some research indicates that maintaining a consistent sleep schedule may be even more beneficial to your health than just focusing on getting 7 or 8 hours of sleep each night. This is because adhering to a regular sleep and wake routine helps your body's internal circadian rhythm, which governs various biological processes, to function more efficiently. In simpler terms, sticking to a schedule helps your body to learn when it's time to sleep and when it's time to wake up. Creating a pre-sleep ritual for yourself works for the same reason. Telomerase booster number 4, a healthy environment. Finally, Blackburn and Epel say that environmental factors can have significant impacts on your telomeres, for better or worse. Here are a few suggestions to create a healthier environment. Greenify your space. Fortifying your living space with greenery not only beautifies your surroundings, but also serves as a natural bulwark against airborne toxins like those found in car exhaust. Go natural. Embracing all natural alternatives to common household cleaners and cosmetics helps minimize your contact with dangerous substances like bleach and formaldehyde. Remember, environmental toxins damage your telomeres and shorten your healthy years. For example, scrubbing with baking soda is a safe and effective way to clean everything from oven racks to toilets without the need for any toxic chemicals. Find substitutes for plastic. Drinking from plastic bottles or microwaving meals in plastic containers exposes you to harmful chemicals like bisphenol A, BPA, thereby endangering your health and your telomeres. So, using containers made of glass or other non-plastic materials will help you stay healthier for longer. Many people can't afford a healthy lifestyle. When discussing healthy lifestyle choices, we must acknowledge that for many people, particularly those with low incomes, such choices aren't an option. First of all, going out into nature or bringing nature into your home, as the authors suggest, isn't as easy as it sounds for many people. For instance, one study found that 70% of impoverished communities in the United States don't have easy access to places like parks or nature preserves. Furthermore, for people who are already struggling to make ends meet, spending money on plants, not to mention the time and effort to take care of them, is out of the question. Second, sticking to all natural products can be time-consuming and difficult. While it may be cheaper to use natural cleaning products, they can require more elbow grease, and thus time and energy, to achieve the same results as chemical household cleaners. Going natural may also be more expensive, especially when it comes to food. In Ultra-Processed People, Dr. Chris Van Tulleken explains that impoverished urban areas are often lined with unhealthy fast food restaurants and have grocery stores filled with what he calls ultra-processed food, cheap foods loaded with unhealthy additives that sicken the people who rely on them for nourishment. Finally, impoverished people often have to buy single-use items wrapped in plastic, called sachet packaging, because they simply can't afford to buy products in larger quantities. For people in such desperate straits, looking for products with alternative packaging like glass or cloth is simply out of the question. Telomerase booster number 5, optimism. Finally, Blackburn and Epel urge you to work toward a more optimistic mindset, especially when it comes to facing life's challenges. Instead of dwelling on problems or treating them as insurmountable, optimists view difficulties as temporary hurdles on the path to their goals. They perceive challenges as opportunities for growth, rather than as threats. For instance, if you lose your job, it would be natural to fall into a pessimistic mindset of thinking that you'll never find another job that good, never make as much money as you were making, or that you'll lose your home before finding another job. However, an optimist would instead see this challenge as a chance to find an even better job and progress their career with a new employer. Short-form note: seeing challenges as chances to improve yourself comes directly from what psychologist Carol Dweck, mindset, calls a growth mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication and hard work. For someone with such a mindset, a difficult problem is both opportunity and motivation to improve. Conversely, a fixed mindset assumes that talents and aptitudes are static traits that you can't significantly improve upon. Therefore, someone with a fixed mindset is likely to give up when faced with a challenge because they don't think it's possible to improve themselves enough to overcome that challenge. However, the authors add, optimism doesn't mean that you ignore negative feelings or experiences. It means you acknowledge them, but don't let them define you or your future. This kind of mindset helps reduce stress and promotes mental well-being, which in turn keeps your cells strong and healthy for as long as possible. Develop optimism through radical acceptance. Blackburn and Epel's principle of acknowledging thoughts without letting them control you is similar to how Tara Brach describes radical acceptance in her book of the same name. Therefore, one way to develop a more resilient mindset is to try incorporating Brach's suggestions into your life. There are two essential parts of radical acceptance: recognition and compassion. Recognition, also known as mindfulness in Buddhist traditions, involves clearly understanding what we're experiencing physically, mentally, and emotionally, without being controlled by those experiences. For instance, if you feel afraid, you can recognize the racing thoughts, bodily tension, and urge to flee, but not act on that impulse. You simply accept the experience as it is, without trying to change or fix it. The second aspect of radical acceptance, compassion, means responding to yourself with care and tenderness, rather than with harsh judgment. Continuing the previous example, You wouldn't berate yourself for feeling afraid or try to convince yourself that there's nothing to be afraid of. You'd be kind to yourself, as you might be kind to a dear friend or a child who feels afraid.